Hello, everybody. Welcome into show number one here of our draft coverage here. Going to try to pull in a few members across the ACFL to do a little early sleepers predictions here in advance of the combine. Not specifically focused on the combine, though that is kind of the catalyst for a lot of people moving up and down the board. But in general, just going to a few people. We'll see how many I end up pulling together in the end, and just kind of talking about some guys they like early in the process here. Obviously, things change as we get through it, but for now, just some guys that have stood out to them in the early going. And our first guest up here is Mockmaster. How you doing today?
Doing good, doing good. I'm excited to get into the draft process a little bit more. Continue watching tape, see what happens at the combine, and see how my board changes over the next months. Really,
Yep, we're all like just getting into it like in a real way, like probably the last month or so. So
yep,
it's just interesting to see because like for me, I look at big boards a lot, but I don't always like go in order. So like the guys that I've liked low just feel very random. Like I'll know nobody for like 40 names, and then it's like, oh god, I had this guy as a third rounder. What the hell, you know? So
yep,
it's kind of funny how it works out, and it'll be that way for the whole time. Honestly, like you'll get to a point where like most of the names, you've seen most of the stuff, but even still, you'll like reach a stretch where you're like, oh, okay, I guess I scouted up till here, and then you'll see somebody's like, oh, wow, this guy's all the way down here, crazy. Which is just some of the whole consensus thing is hard to change sometimes, but
yep,
it's a fun process all around.
for sure. Yeah, right now I've just been kind of looking at guys that are kind of around where my picks are at, and then I've had some people like send names of like, hey, you should check out this person, and so like that's basically the extent that I've done so far is who's going around my picks and what are other people that have been suggested to me. So Senior Bowl helped a little bit too, getting
Yep.
to see some guys there and um, start getting some ideas.
Especially for these small school guys, just seeing them go up against some of the bigger school competition, which is oftentimes the biggest knock on them is just, oh, well, they were dominant, but like these guys aren't NFL prospects they're up against. So it's a lot of fun. I haven't gotten a chance to dig into as much of that tape as I would have liked at this point. I watched a lot of them as they were happening when I could, but I didn't, necessarily get the backfill that I was hoping for at this point. But we still got some time on that, of course. Um,
Yeah.
but would you like to
Well,
introduce name number one here for the
I
sleepers?
mean, that's a perfect setup. School guy with knocks on his size. See how he competes at the Senior Bowl. Um, kind of the um, guideline was outside of the top 120
Yep. Oh, I didn't
on
introduce that.
consensus right
Sorry, I
now.
forgot to say the whole thing.
No, you're good. You're good.
Everybody's going to have. I've given 2 to 3 names. I've said two first, but I think we're going to do three in the end. Sleepers outside of the top 120 on mockdraftdatabase.com at the time of our recording, because these things change, and it's a little bit slow to update. So there's a few guys that are pretty low hanging fruit that I decided not to talk about myself. It's like, okay, well, this guy's not going to be, 135 or whatever. Like he's going to be up there like soon.
Yeah.
So I try to go for guys who weren't necessarily fully on the radar, I thought, as a whole. But yeah, that's the thing. Non top 120 mock draft database right now counts as a sleeper.
Yeah. And I feel like this guy maybe was a little low hanging fruit. He's at 122, so he's barely outside that 120. Um, but David Walker from Central Arkansas, the edge rusher, currently mid fourth round projection. Some people have him up in day two. Some people have him as low as round six. But he's a guy that I like tape wise. It's insane. I think he had like 40 sacks over the last 3 years. An absolute kind of stalwart in the run, but is not the biggest guy. He's only I think 6 foot, like 260. Um, but just an explosive first step, good counters, insanely powerful bull rusher. And the question was kind of how is that strength going to hold up at the Senior Bowl? And he had reps at the Senior Bowl against Marcus and Bo, who's going to be a second round pick, most likely, Anthony Belton, Ozzy Trapilo, Jalen Travis, all who are kind of in that end of day two into day three range for offensive line. And he made every single one of them look silly. So for me, that kind of answered a lot of the questions of like small school guy, how strong is he really? When he was basically just pushing those guys straight into the coaches in practice reps. So um, For me, he's a sleeper that I feel like people started to pick up on during the Senior Bowl, that we haven't seen rise up. So that's why I feel like he's low hanging fruit. I feel like he will go on day two, um, but he's very much in the same kind of vein as a. I mean, this is Brandon Graham is a uh, high ask for a comp, but if you want to go like last year, Mo Kamara, that similar kind of player in terms of size but production.
I mean, I'm looking at what they got him at the combine here, or not combine, the Senior Bowl, real quick. I was trying to get his measurements. I don't know if you have those handy, because I was looking at the PFF and they had him at 260. Is that about right? You think?
Yeah, I think he was like 263 and 6'1",
See, that's like
or six
that's
foot, something like
way
that.
bigger than what Kamara was last year. Kamara
Kamara was
was two.
Kamara
Was
was
he?
258, I think.
Is
Yeah,
he 258? I thought he was below 250. Okay, maybe it was a late concern earlier. Okay, well there you go. But yeah, it's a shorter guy, great leverage. Um, I remember him popping at the Senior Bowl, so that's pretty much my only exposure to him was him absolutely cooking there. But yeah, 37 sacks last 3 years.
yeah,
Um,
just
last
crazy numbers.
2023 or 2024, a little bit low, let him down, only 9. Ridiculous. Absolute bum. Only 9 sacks in the season. Ridiculous. But his grading is all like high 90th percentiles, like for all the stuff that the PFF guys usually look at for their translatable stuff. I mean, he's just absolutely just dominating this level of competition. 21% win rate, 9% stop rate on run defense. Like those are both top tier numbers. So he looks the part, um, on paper at least. Obviously, you get in the competition, but he showed that that's going to translate at least against the guys he saw, um, there down in Mobile.
Yeah, yeah, and then realistically, he's 3-4 linebacker, focus on pass rush. That was really kind of his best spot. Don't try to throw him in coverage or anything like that. Um, but yeah, I he's a guy that I feel like is gonna we're gonna see on day two, or could be a steal for somebody on at the beginning of day three, if he's still there.
Absolutely. So my guy, when I bring my guys up here, just gonna be a quick talk because that's mostly about the people I've had on. But since you mentioned him, Jalen Travis, Iowa State. Uh, I liked him coming into the Senior Bowl. Obviously, I watch a lot of Iowa football, being in Iowa. And living in
Yep.
Ames, you get a lot of exposure to these guys, and it's just one of those things where you just didn't really hear his name called, and that's a great thing for an offensive lineman. He was a rock there, for them, and just nobody really beat him all that often. He allowed 9 pressures all year. Um, just continuing to be, had no penalties really, really turned it up near the end of the year. And I thought he had a pretty solid Senior Bowl, especially through practices as well. Obviously, you mentioned not perfect, but
Yeah.
he's in the 200s here on mock draft database. Like, um, he was an easy pick for me, just because he's so low on here.
Yeah, I feel
He's
like
not
that's
going to be
low.
there that late. He's at 219. Like, he's going to be, third round guy, I think. Um, maybe they said early day 3, but even still, that's in the low 100s.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I just
for
don't think
sure, a
he's gonna
lot
cut
higher than
100
that.
off of this. I think, when all said and done. But yeah, that's kind of piggybacking off yours there, just because you name dropped him, but just
Yeah,
a
no, I like Travis. It just happened to be funny that one of the first reps I saw of Walker at the Senior Bowl was him pushing Travis straight back into the coach. Um, and actually, I think I mentioned Trapilo, or however you say it, the Aussie from NC State.
yeah.
His was the most egregious. I mean, it was like he just pushed the guy once and was straight up back to the coach in the pocket. And um, yeah, it was just funny that Travis happened to be the one because he's one that I like as well. I agree with you. He's not going to be a sixth or seventh round pick. He's going to be in that fourth round range. I think early fourth, with a chance to sneak into third if a team likes this fit.
Yeah, I think it'll be physical
Um,
tools because he's got to grow in the run game to like really find a true role here. So you're hoping to see some explosiveness, from him at the combine to push that stock a little higher even.
yep.
All right, number two.
Yeah, I mean, if we, yeah, I will stay in the Midwest. Um, my next sleeper is Cody Lindenberg, linebacker from Minnesota. Um, so I think he's 186 right now on the big board. But I could see him up in round two, depending how he tests. I think he's similar to Troy Anderson a couple years back in terms of like that super raw but super athletic style of linebacker that we've seen the NFL really like. Wallace last year, another one kind of in that same range. He's 6'3", 240. But honestly, he plays at a speed that he could be the best tester at the combine this year among the linebackers. Um, Struggled with injuries quite a bit. And I think last year was really the first season that he was fully healthy, but was first team all Big Ten last year. Explosive downhill linebacker, a good feel for coverage. It does get a little bit aggressive in zone, which leaves some space behind him, so he'll have to fix that. But kind of that sideline to sideline, explosive downhill linebacker type. Um, that if he tests well, I think could put him up into mid day two um, with some good play. So
So I think for him, I'm a big fan of his because I think that the way that the Big Ten, which is a little less so than it used to be because of the expansion, right? We've somewhat diluted the whole Big Ten thing, but a lot of that aggressiveness I see from him in coverage kind of just stems from the teams he plays. To me, like if I'm scouting the teams that he's up against, the concepts that I see them run, I understand the risk he took to leave himself open. So I don't think it's necessarily a fault in preparation. It's just being aggressively tuned in that Minnesota defense where he was the guy. So I don't think it's necessarily something that is going to be a true Achilles heel for him. It's sometimes hard to rewire yourself early, but I like him a lot. He tries to make plays in coverage, which is not something you could say for most linebackers. Most linebackers, they
yeah,
find their spot and they sit there. So, excellent run defender. Like to see him tackle a little bit better, but like it's hard to tackle these guys. He's there. It's more important to be there and making plays on the ball than to just be a sound tackler that's a step late. So I'm a
yeah,
big fan for sure. I was when you said his name, I was like, he's not 120 right now. Like, what's I thought he had some hype going, but he does not. And I even looked on Twitter and I didn't see a ton of people talking about it right away either. So crazy.
yeah. No, he's. I my two biggest issues with him is wrapping up, and then also he gets lost at the line. He needs to shed blocks better. I feel like if he can do those two things, or show that he can do those two things, he'll be set. I liked his tape actually better than Troy Anderson, who went in the second. Um, so yeah, I mean, if he tests well, I don't see why we couldn't be talking about him as a top 60, top 70 guy.
Which I'm not sure on
In a
Cody's
month and a
story,
half.
but Troy's was big story was that he had like been playing quarterback, like he played running back for that team. So like I think that Troy I think got a little bit more benefit of the doubt for some of his warts as a linebacker because he really was thrown everywhere in college because he was just
Yeah,
the only real athlete on that team. Uh, so I think
yeah, and that
that's
was
part of the difference in I think perception maybe, but even still, if he blows up the combine, we're gonna see these numbers skyrocket.
yeah, and he really only had one season at linebacker, Cody,
Okay.
just because of injuries the last couple of years. He had preseason injuries, I think, both in 2022 and 2023, which is part of why his stock is so low, is injury history. But um,
He did get
he
500
really hasn't.
snaps in 22 and then 250.
22,
So it's
okay,
like it's 500 is like a pretty good underclassman season, but it was 23, which is a pretty important like full starter year that
yeah,
he basically was out for 2/3 the year. So I definitely give you the credit for that one, but I think that might just be the benefit of the doubt he might not get as somebody who didn't
nice play.
have to get thrown
Yeah,
around different positions. But even still, that doesn't mean you're not a better linebacker.
yeah, no, yeah, it's we'll see how he tests because the tape shows it. It'll just be a question of whether or not he actually tests that way. Because if he doesn't test well, I think he'll probably stay on day three, but a good test and he should be at day two pretty easily.
All right, my number two. We're gonna stay on brand here. Luke Lockley. Listen, I know it's like my type, right? I'm just gonna pick the Iowa tight end. I think he just moves really well. Like that, I think that's it. I think he moves super well. I think his blocking is somewhat underrated. I think he does a pretty decent job when he's not asked to do some absurd shit, like block like down, do some of the backside reach stuff that I will have him do. Um, I just think he didn't get enough opportunities to show out as the guy who can be this. He has a 3% drop rate. That's one drop. I'm pretty sure. I think I saw the thing. Yeah, he has one drop, 3% drop rate. That's just how little action he got. And I just don't think that was warranted. I think he moves super well in space. His routes are excellent. I think he's got good feel. It's just he happens to go to Iowa, who cannot run a competent offense to save their lives 90% of the time still, though it was a better year for them. So that's what I'd say. I just think he's got good hands. He showed out at the Shrine Bowl as well. Had some awesome reps there. So I think that he is a guy who, I mean, I'll take another swing at an Iowa guy,
Yeah,
essentially, if it comes
no,
down to it.
it's it's funny that you bring him up because just 2 weeks ago I had a conversation with Bert about him. Um, he asked specifically about Lachey and what I felt about Lachey, and it I'm conflicted because I don't think he's going to test that great. He's just not. He moves well in space, but he's not like a dynamic athlete to necessarily say like he should be a second or third round tight end. And I feel like he makes exceptional catches on plays he shouldn't catch, and then struggles with passes he should catch. Like he still comes up with them. You talk about the drop rate, like he still will catch it, but it's like he has to like double clutch to make the catch, or he makes it way more difficult than it needs to be at times. But I think in the right system, he's an average starting tight end that you could be getting on day three. Um, yeah, I'm always a fan of Iowa tight ends. I think the stat is since like 2000 they haven't had a starting tight end not get drafted, which is insane. But yeah, I'm conflicted on Lachey, and if he tests well, I probably will feel better about him than I do right now.
Yeah, I think he's. I mean, it's interesting because I don't necessarily think he's a truly natural pass catcher in the sense of like it's just effortless, plucking everything out of the air. But I think he's going to be reliable, and like a reliable guy who can give you some wiggle after the catch, and find his space and zone. Should be a day three guy all the way. Like he's 250 right now, which is like basically undrafted range. That's just way too low.
Yeah, no, he should be probably in the fifth, maybe in the fourth, if you love him as a tight end. I think All was better last year. You and I talked about All before the draft a little bit.
Yeah, all
Um,
had the injuries. Is the only
I
reason he
I
was that
liked
low.
I liked him I liked him a lot better than Lachey.
Indeed.
Um, but we'll see.
Yeah,
We'll
it's
see where
it's
he
not
ends up
quite a
going.
comparison. They're in the same range only because the injuries put all there,
Yeah,
and Lachey is just like getting there, just based off his kind of talent there. But either way, I think it's a swing worth taking at tight end here.
yeah. Especially at where they have him right now. If he's in the 200s, I feel like a no-brainer at tight end.
Yeah. All right, your number three.
My number three is gonna be a deep sleeper. He's at number 671 right now on the big board, so way down there. But Keaton Crawford, the safety out of Nevada, um, was a four-star recruit coming out of college, top 150 recruit. Went to Texas and played there for 4 years, but never really did anything besides special teams. Exceptional special teams player, but never really cracked the defense. And then one of Texas's coaches became Nevada's head coach, and he transferred to Nevada before this year. So this past season was their starting strong safety, and I think he's one that has a lot of questions on tape, but I think at the combine he is going to be an exceptional tester, and we're going to see him fly up some boards. Um, Now, obviously, consensus has him right now as a UDFA. I don't think that's probably going to be the case. We'll probably see him in the fifth or sixth round. I think if he tests really well, which isn't like day two sleeper, but based on where he's being seen right now, I think um, he's a developmental safety really, with elite closing speed, aggressive downhill, explosive blitzing, kind of a versatile piece that I think like a Brian Flores or a Vic Fangio um, could really use. And I think his special teams experience will help him stick on a team to be able to develop instead of being a safety or nothing, um, which is harder to stick around as a late round pick if you can't play special teams. So I think he'll run in the 4.3s in the 40. He was a former running back, so I think we'll see some of the shuttle recon stuff do really well too. So curious to see how he finishes at the combine because he should test exceptionally well.
Yeah, so I had to go to different sources because PFF does not have him, not even close. So I was looking for my stuff, right, just to give some background information on him. I think this is like a college scouting thing, but it has updated for him. Former four-star guy, Texas to Nevada. They think he's very fast. They've got this estimated. I'm guessing this is kind of like an off-season sort of workout thing at one of the points in college because it's not a high school number. At 4.39.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
I
that sounds
mean,
about right.
if he can hit that or lower, he's drafted 100%. Even if it's just a special teams guy, because that's I think a thing we underlook with these day three wide receivers, defensive backs, especially linebackers, is they're all special teams guys for the first 2 years, regardless. He's trying to make the team as a gunner, and I think with the speed, and he is, they said here his strength was tackling. I haven't actually watched him yet, but if he can, he played special teams for 4 years at
I
a big program. If he can tackle, shit, there you go, you're in.
I don't necessarily agree with that.
Okay, well there you
I
go.
think he led with his shoulder way too much
Okay,
to succeed with that at 5'11" in the NFL. He's gonna have to learn to wrap up in order to. Yeah, but on special teams, like when if he's got that athleticism and um, he was good at it at Texas, I feel like he'll be fine.
okay. Now they also mentioned tackling and weaknesses, so I don't know what they want. They said tackling technique needs refinement, so I have no idea what they're going with anymore. All right, well I don't look at scouting reports all that often, other than the PFF stuff. But I wanted to see their numbers, not what they say, as much. So
Yeah,
that's usually why I go off that, and like testing numbers and stuff. I don't got those yet. So yeah, good fun. Guess I won't come back to this site. I think, um, but you live and learn.
I agree. 4.39. At least maybe that's right.
Yeah,
I
I
wouldn't.
mean
Yeah,
it
I think
had
four
like a lot of
threes.
college numbers and stuff, so I would not. I mean that might just have been a reported thing or whatever, but I would trust at least that they've heard something about his speed. And like the other place I went to also said he was very fast, so like it's not like we're doubting his speed. Um,
Yeah, yeah. I'll be disappointed if he runs 4.45 or higher because he really should probably be in the 4.3s.
yeah, if it's 4.45 or higher, we're talking about him undrafted, unfortunately, probably. But I'm
Hey, I went for late sleeper.
late
I'm
sleeper.
picking the low
Hey,
hanging
listen,
fruit on this one.
I appreciate you, dude. I do. You gotta disperse it. You got your low hanging fruit. You got your deep sleeper. All right, my last guy before we get out of here, Devin Neal. I don't think he's gonna be a combine riser necessarily, though. On the Stock Exchange podcast, they did drop that he was a good tester in game, which I also thought he was. Definitely a competent athlete. Um, in game. Like I don't think he was necessarily like getting ran around there. I just think he is so awesome. That's just what it is. I think he is a very tough guy to bring down. He's exactly the kind of running back you want. Probably more complimentary, but everybody's complimentary nowadays, right? There's just nobody who you're expecting to be as a feature back unless they're a first round guy. And well, we're not talking about first round guys today, are we? But I mean, 17 carries, 15 yards. That's pretty good explosiveness in a Kansas offense that didn't really play all that well this year. So I would not be worried about his explosiveness in game, like limiting him to 5 yard carries or anything like that. Pretty good after contact. And only 2 drops on the year, though his targets were a little bit low, so I don't know if I'm expecting him to be a real pass catcher. That's where the kind of complimentary comes in. You're expecting him to come in specifically in gap schemes. Love him in those. He graded out very excellently in those, and he showed it on the film when I saw him too. That's where I'm looking for him for. That's what I run anyway. So I want a guy who's going to hit the hole and find that second, third level quickly, and I think he does that very well.
Yeah, Neil. I'll to be honest, I haven't watched a whole lot of Neil. He's one that got recommended to me, so he's on my list to watch, but I have not been able to watch a whole lot on him yet. Um, I'm excited to see what he brings because I've had multiple people tell me now to check out Neil, which hopefully is a good sign.
Yeah, I mean he's at 130 right now, and I doubt he would have stayed there if it updated by now. But my low
Yeah,
hanging fruit, I guess.
hey, we all gotta have one.
We all gotta have one. All right. Well, is there anything else you want to add? We went for 26 minutes, so we didn't quite reach our 15-minute goal. That's on me. I'll take credit.
All right. No, we were close.
We were close.
We were close.
We were right there.
Real. Under 30. Impressive.
Under 30. See, yeah, it rounds down to 15. All right.
Don't round up. We're fine.
Yeah. So this will be edited together with other sections. So I will see you guys in the next part. Bachmaster, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. We are here, part two of the Sleepers show, and I have with me the New York Giants owner, FBI Burt Macklin. How you doing today, Burt?
Hello, how's it going, Steele? Happy Monday.
Oh, it's a wonderful Monday. Get to talk some draft prospects. Got a few of you guys here today, and probably more throughout the week as we hopefully fill this show out a bit. Obviously, part one was MK and I talking about some of our sleepers. So now here for this segment, we've got Bert. Hopefully, with this, I have some good timestamps. I'm always bad at the timestamps, but I'm hoping I get some good ones this time. Figure it
hmm
out. So
Yeah.
let's just get right into it. Who do you got for our first name here?
Okay, so I guess to kind of start talking about it, I kind of pulled one out of like my bag of real sleepers here. This is Texas running back Jadon Blue. I don't even know if a lot of people even know about this guy, to be honest with you. Like, I don't even know where he is on like the consensus big board right now. But he's kind of like this, sub 6 foot tall, around 200 pound running back that's like really smooth and fast. He's kind of like a James Cook 2.0 type of thing. And I think around the combine, especially if he runs really quick, he's going to be on the radar more. Yeah, I mean, it's possible, because how deep this class could be. He can be, taken day three in like the fifth round or later, but who knows? Like maybe he comes out on day two. Um, but yeah, this running back class is really crazy, and I feel like this is kind of like the first time someone's ever talked about him. So I would say he's probably like a good sleeper to kind of at least put on the radar. What do you think about him? Have you even heard of him before?
I mean, I haven't gotten too much into watching him yet. He ended the season awesome against Clemson. That game was insane. That's pretty
Mhm.
much my only real exposure to him. But other than that, I've just heard. I mean, it's the fumbles for him this season.
Yeah,
That's just the thing that I've heard. Just kind of consuming content essentially. That was obviously the big concern. Fumbles and drops, both of which aren't ideal, but he also didn't have any drops before this season, so I'm not sure if I'm really worried about the drops. It's kind of just one of those things. Only had one fumble before this year too, which again, it's not a ton of attempts. Um, could just be some
yeah,
poor luck kind of feeding into that. It's really hard to read off of fumbles as an issue because it literally is four plays out of his 100 plus. Like it's just like you know he fumbled the
I would say
ball, but
maybe.
that's fixable.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say like maybe he's used as like an early like scat back type of thing. I don't know, but if anything, he's a nice little speedster to add to the room, in my opinion, and especially if he's a guy who's there like in the sixth round or less, why not, right? So
Yeah,
that's
100%.
okay. Yeah, so he's one. Another one would be someone who actually got a decent bit of buzz at the Senior Bowl, and it is a defender, Femi Oladejo, I think is how you pronounce his name. I think Femi is just kind of short for whatever his full
Yeah,
name is.
Oluwafemi.
Oh, okay, yeah, I
Yeah,
got it. So he's kind of like a fun player. He's like this kind of like I don't want to say like a tweener, but he's kind of like a hybrid where he played inside linebacker and he kind of transitioned to edge rusher, and he's been playing really well off the edge where he just is like really twitchy and has like some sacks and TFL and everything. He is a little, I think he's a little undersized. Like I think he's like 6'3", and I don't remember. I think he's like
Six, I got him. Yeah,
255.
250 is what PFF has him at. 6'3", 250.
Yeah, so he's probably like, like a pass rush specialist type of thing, but still kind of like a guy who can, really come in and provide some pass rush and everything like that, especially again, like another like day two or day three type of developmental edge rusher. I think he could be uh, like Baron Browning, stuff like that, like someone who can kind of come in and just, eventually develop to be like an edge. So I think he's another interesting dude. Um,
First round pick, Baron Browning, the legend.
yeah. Yeah, so he has like the traits to be productive. Like he's got like good length. He can really, he's really twitchy, as I said before. He's got good bend, but he's also very raw with his moves. So it's definitely someone who can come in, blitz and stuff like that, and eventually, hopefully get more development in there. And he's pretty flexible around. Like he's got experience in inside and everything. So he's a fun player who I would definitely think is going to be interesting to see where he goes in this draft class. I think he's almost like a kind of like a Zach Bond mold, you know what I mean? But like reverse, where like he went from like a converted edge to like an inside guy, but now we see this guy going from inside to out. So yeah, I
Yeah, I
think
mean, he had 150 snaps at edge before the season total, and he did play off ball like 300 plus snaps. So yeah, full transition this season. Only played 100 snaps off ball, 500 at outside. So truly, I mean, completely transitioned. For the run defense concerns, I'm just not sure I buy weight being the number one indicator if a guy can hang it as an early down rusher. Like maybe scheme defendant to a degree, right? I don't know if you're looking at him as being like a, five tech, you know, 3-4 or 4-3 type run
oh
defender.
yeah,
But like if you're, I mean, I look at things a lot through the lens that I'm in, right? The outside linebacker, like his run stop rate 9.3%. It's high 80s, maybe low 90s percentile college football.
hmm
His run defense grade is pretty solid. Like, and he's coming from the off ball. Like, I mean, as far as an understanding of assignments in the run game, that should be the more part that's more natural for him, and that's where his production was too. So, you're just looking for the traits to translate better in pass rush. But yeah,
right. Like he has like this. Yeah, I think honestly, at least for a lot of his pass rush, it just seems like he's using his traits. You know what I mean? Like he's just using his athleticism to win. And I think maybe in the NFL, like he goes to a team that like runs like a traditional 3-4, or maybe like in a 4-3. He's kind of like I think he's like the Sam. You know what I mean? Where he can kind of be like
overhang
the
guy.
yeah, like the overhang guy. Set an edge, kind of blitz in. But not exactly like line up against a tackle, like without like a little burst of speed where like a seven tech would go in. Um, so that's kind of like what I think with him. But anyway, he's a fun player. I think with the combine he'll get more buzz. I would say if I had to guess, he's probably like a third round type of player, maybe like a fourth rounder here. Who knows? But another fun player. And I have a bonus third guy for you, and
Oh yeah.
it is a corner called Robert Longerbeam. It's kind of a fun player, undersized a bit, like a very typical, like sub 6 foot, sub 180 pound type of corner, where there's some physicality and stuff like that. He makes good play. He's made a couple good, really good plays in the run game, which is something I like to look for. Like I think that's more important than people realize in today's NFL, where they always focus on like the coverage ability and stuff like that, but I think something that's really important from my point of view is like how physical is the corner? Like, does he let the receiver bully him? Is he afraid to tackle and stuff? And I think this corner like has shown traits where he can maybe be like a starting slot in the NFL. I don't. I think he played outside corner at college. I don't really know, but I think
Yeah, it's
teams
it's
will view
outside
him.
corner 85 plus percent of the time.
Yeah, I think teams will view him as like a slot guy. Like he's probably honestly like right now he's probably like a day three. Like special teamer, depth corner who could, be like a starting slot corner. But, I don't even know if he's on anybody's radar at all to even like be a draftable dude. But you know me, I like to scrap heap and stuff. So maybe he's a guy who, gets taken in like the fifth round and then there's an injury and he comes in and performs well in the nickel. You know what I mean? Like almost like like Christian Izien on the Buccaneers, where I think I know he didn't start right away. I'm pretty sure that's what happened, where I think Izzian was like an undrafted free agent or something like that, but then there was an injury and then he just kind of took over from there. And I kind of think maybe, this guy from Rutgers could be kind of similar. So it's I don't know. I didn't really look too much into him, but I think he's kind of a fun player. So
I mean, his
and I think
percentiles put out about above average across the board here. His run defense grade is a little low, but sometimes just PFF's weird with defensive background defense grades. I've disagreed with a lot of them throughout the years, so I'm not holding too much stock in that. But for the most part, I mean, completion percentage allowed pretty at least middle of the pack. His forcing completions, he's got 10 of them, which I mean
mhm.
just by the target amounts he's had, 55. It's pretty solid. We're
He's
just
just had like I was just gonna say, like he's just had some like good tape where you just kind of watch where he'll just come and make a play and he'll stick with the dude where it may not show like in his just his stats and everything, but I thought maybe I wouldn't say like a super steal, like I wouldn't place $1 million bet that this guy's gonna be great, but like a fun player to kind of draft. I would say he's at least fun to draft type of thing, and from there. So and I know I think he did pretty well in the Senior Bowl as well, so maybe at least someone who at least can go somewhere exciting, I think. So yeah, I don't know. I kind of went down to like the deep end with some of these sleepers, I guess,
well,
right? Like
that's
definitely
good.
like late day three guys.
You got to flex that you've been on it early. Like, oh, look at that, pulling a. Although I mean, MK has got us beat so far. He's pulled the lowest guy on the board. He pulled the guy in the 600s, so he's
Oh
got
well, yeah.
he's got he's got us flexed on there, I guess.
I think he really went out of way for that. I think I had just a couple guys where I just was like, all right, I'll think of a name of someone who I've known and I'll talk about him and go from there. So, but yeah, that's good. Awesome. I can't wait to hear more about it.
All right. Well, thank you for joining me. We'll have hopefully a couple more parts here. I know I've got Acorn lined up after this at some point, hopefully later today, and then Xeon as well is looking likely to jump on. We'll see if we can pull any more people in. But
All
uh,
right, nice. Well,
thanks,
thanks for having me.
yeah, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you guys in part three.
All right, see you later.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into part three of our sleeper show here, and we have a very special guest on. His first time on the ACFL podcast, new member in the league, Big Tex. How are you doing today?
Well,
And introduce yourself.
honestly, it's been a little of a slow day. I had a lot of work to do today, but I'm feeling great. A little sick, but we're moving on with it. So I'm Big Tex. I'm a sophomore in college, and I love sports. Pretty easy as that. I mean, I live and breathe them.
Yeah,
Pretty
we
easy.
we spent the whole last hour forcing you to join random leagues. It's been great.
Exactly. Yes.
We're spreading your wings. But all right, so you've come in at a great time. There's gonna be a lot of content coming forward. So as much as you want to get on and then, talk about things, react to things, we will have plenty to discuss with the ACFL offseason. Always a busy time around here. So we're starting us off with some sleepers. Who's your first name for us today?
A little bit of a more known name because he really, in my opinion, should have declared last year. But I think with how he didn't injured at the end of last season, just really didn't play that amazing towards the end. It kind of made sense at the same time. But Denzel Burke from Ohio State, the corner, fun dude. But again, went from first round potential to looking more like late second, early third, maybe fourth round, depending on what team's seeing them or if they go for if they really push into last year's stats and stuff like that. Um, I personally really like him. Now, PFF isn't the best thing to use, but you know, he's definitely didn't last year having an 80 grade. 11 games. Of course, got hurt at the end of the season. Not a big pick guy, but will definitely keep your number one receiver from going anywhere. Last year in 11 games, he only allowed 277 yards and only a single touchdown. I mean, for a number one corner at a school like Ohio State, that is really good. And I think for an NFL corner, you're looking for someone that's really not going to allow those yards. this year. Played 16 games, of course. I actually think he was out for the Natty, so definitely a little something that was definitely missing out there. They still ended up winning, but um, you know allowed in 5 more games, only allowed about 100 more yards. So it's not a little over 100 more yards. And again, not a big pick guy, but will be that lockdown corner you're looking for. But there's some big things in it. He's definitely more of a zone. Um, he is a zone coverage guy. So when teams will not be looking for that for that man coverage out of him. He had a 58 grade this year. Just a really poor season in man. But was one of the best corners you could probably watch in college football at zone this year.
Yeah,
Um,
I
you
would
know,
say I think I definitely agree with him on the zone grade. I actually watched him a lot more for last year coming into it. It's just, I mean,
yep,
I
yep,
want to
yep.
see your take on this just because I've talked to a couple people about this. Like with corner, like I think I'm just looking for their best season because it's just such a hard position to play and play well at. I kind of just want to see your best work and hope you can replicate that.
I actually a guy that makes me not think of him, but someone that you went off their best season was Derek Stingley Jr. Of course, a lot of teams he got picked third overall from that freshman season. Injuries killed him, and that was a big reason he was picked. But I think if you're going off what you're looking for, last year was clearly his best season, and like I said before, he should have declared. It's going to be a fun, fun, thing for him to see where he goes. He's a really wide range, in my opinion. He can go to, second or to fourth round. I think is the spot for him due to the fact is he is a good corner. It's just he just couldn't, put up the stats he did last year, and I guess that kind of the stuff that happens when you decide to, come back for a year because you didn't win the Natty.
Yeah, I definitely think he lost out on that draft stock because of it. But I wasn't going to have him in the first round where I was last year with him. So I think he's kind of, I think he's going to end up in the range I expected him in last year. So I'm not sure if in the end it maybe would matter. This process kind of has a way of fluctuating people up and down the board, and I think this is a good call out for somebody who's going to go up it.
Oh, 100%. I think this guy has a very high chance of being that mid to late second round guy that maybe people are more seeing as a project, just in terms of like a guy that has shown he can be that number one guy, at Ohio State, but has really, had a down year, but a guy that, if a team can figure out what, can use that man to their advantage, or not man, sorry, zone to their advantage, and really keep away from the man coverage with him, I think he could easily be a top 10 corner in this league.
Yep, absolutely. We're here about the halfway point. We're in for about 10 minutes per segment. Who do you got as number two?
So I really, really, as a Texans fan, I'm kind of hoping we draft him. I really, really like this man. Um, and that is 6'3", 315 pound monster of a center, Jake Majors out of Texas. So he's one of those guys that when you're looking for an all around center, um, you have he's probably one of their best centers in this draft, in my opinion. He's um, this is from actually Gridion, but from what I watch a little bit on him, he's great at pass protection, and he's also a really good run blocker. Um, if we actually look at what he put up this year, so he overall he had he had a better season the last his last 2 years as a junior, incrementally going up every year. Didn't allow a single sack in the last 2 years. Now he did allow about just over double the amount of hurries as last year, but again, I mean, hurries can add up, but especially if you're keeping yourself back there and you're not allowing to the quarterback. I don't hate, you know, I don't think the hurries will be as big of a in the NFL. But his major strength is definitely the pass block. It's one of those pass block centers you're really looking for. Now he's a fine run blocker, but definitely if you're looking for that big pass block center to sit up the middle, let your QB look at the field. This is the type of guy I would probably look to draft.
Yeah, my big question is just the movement, right? So many of these schemes are asking these guys to reach, out to the one tech. If he's going to be able to do that, or if he's going to be more limited to those gap schemes, which are coming back in fashion. Thank you, Sean McVay, for that. But we will see if that trend continues or if we kind of sway back and forth between the zone and the man scheme there. But that was my big question for him. But obviously, I love me a beefy guy on the inside. So the 315 is speaking my language there for sure.
Yeah, no, when I saw the size, I was like, this guy, even if he can't be a center, he's going to fit somewhere on that O line. Now, maybe not tackle, but even if he has to move out to guard, whether it be left or right, I could absolutely see him, succeeding at some sort of interior line position. But I did want to bring up one of the weaknesses that people brought up, but I saw a lot, with the 15 hurries, as he's relying a lot on his strength and like he's not on his technique. He's really relying on just being able to push the guy back. And a lot of the times he struggles keeping the guy where he wants him to go. So we'll see how that correlates to the NFL. Hopefully he can, get those feet moving more. But I de- I definitely see him as uh, probably more of like a third to fifth round type guy, probably late third if he goes there, probably more fourth, fifth rounder. So we'll see exactly where he ends up going, but definitely one of my favorite players in this draft.
Yeah, I think this interior class is very good again for this third, fourth round range, like it almost always is. A lot of intriguing names around there. And the
A
Texas
lot of
line
Texas
was, yeah,
names.
it's a lot of Texas names. I joked about it earlier. Just throw a dart at Texas and hope it doesn't land on yours, and you're doing good. So that'll
Uh,
cover it here. Thank you for being on. We will get more in
no
depth
problem.
here. This one was meant to be sort of a rapid fire segment with other people, but we'll be doing mock drafts and predictions for season and previews for free agency stuff, all that sort of thing. So if you'd like to get on, we'd love to have you for any of those kind of content. So,
Hopefully I can rejoin again. It was fun.
alrighty,
Thanks for having me on.
no problem. We got Acorn up next, so we'll be catching you there at part 4, and I think I got even one more guest to come in after that. So, see you guys there. All right, here we are, part 4 with Acorn today. How are you doing, buddy?
Yeah, I'm doing fine. How about you?
We're doing good. We got a couple of 2025 draft prospects coming up for us,
Mm-hmm.
right, Acorn?
Mm-hmm.
Not
Oh
to,
yeah, for
not in
sure.
reference to anything in particular.
No, no, no,
Don't
no, no,
ask
no.
about any potential animal named people who may or may not have
Nope.
transferred to Florida State instead of coming into the draft potentially.
Nope.
Don't. There
Nuh-uh.
was
Mm-mm.
nobody who.
Nope.
I don't
Nope.
even know why I'm bringing this up right now. I don't know.
Nope.
I'm
You're
just bull.
crazy. You're
I'm
going
just bull.
crazy, dude. Are
I'm
you
just
okay?
bullshitting right now. I don't.
Yeah. No.
Anyway. So yeah, sleepers. Who you got?
Well, first off, I got 5'10", 170 pounds, Jimmy Horn Jr.
Go Buffs.
And well, he's one of my guys primarily because he's pretty fast, and speed is kind of fun, kind of a fun thing. So they have him projected, run something like a 4.3, 4.40, good speed. Um, he, was basically what, like number 2, number 3 receiver for Colorado, Deion Sanders' team. And, his QB, some people are saying could go first overall. Do I think he should go first overall? No, but my opinion really matter? No. But yeah, he is, well, let's look at the downside. He is small. 5'10", 170. Obviously there have been smaller, but ideally from you draft a receiver, you're looking for someone a little bit, right? Probably going to really limit what he can do, you know, like yes, you can have smaller guys contribute well. Look at like a Tank Dell. I'm sure there's other guys. I'm blanking off the top of my head. That's how few there are.
I'm sure there's
But
others.
yeah, I'm sure there's others, But really going to limit what he can do. Probably going to be stuck in the slot. Going to be a gadget guy, comes out, run a jet sweep, go do kickoff returns, whatever. But you watch the film, he doesn't run bad routes. He's got a little sauce behind him. It's just really problem is when you're not that big, doesn't catch the best from what I can see watching tape. I don't know. I think now, but again, I think he runs good routes. I think he's got some good speed. I think he's a guy. You put him in the slot. I think he can cook a little. Now, where would I realistically take? I probably wouldn't consider him until maybe late third round, day 3. But in this receiver class, you can take that as a compliment if you want. How many receivers realistically are going
30.
before him?
Oh,
What?
I thought you were saying in general. I don't
Yeah,
know. 30 of them. We're drafting all the wide receivers, just like every year.
all of them. Just how many picks there are, all of them are receivers.
Everyone's receiver.
But I think, you know, obviously there's been some failures when it comes to drafting these small, undersized, twitched up guys, but there's also been some success stories. Do I think he falls into either one of those brackets? I am not the expert. I cannot judge. However, I do think there are worse prospects in this draft. I think he is a guy to keep an eye on. So that's my take on him.
That's your take. So yeah, 4.34. You think he's getting that? I feel like I gotta get a little lower. I'd love to see him get a little lower, honestly.
Yeah.
Seems he's pretty fast, but it's always hard to see if they're gonna get out of the stance. Essentially, um,
Right.
any idea on the quicks, like the 3-cone shuttle, that sort of
Nothing.
stuff?
There's nothing really projected. I mean, he moves well on tape, so I wouldn't be not. There's nothing projected yet. So
Gotcha. I'm just trying to see if maybe Brutal had something on him. But yeah, I mean, I think that's gonna be the big thing for him, right? You need to, if you're trying to give him as a more of a gadget manufactured touch guy, I think you need him to be just all around explosive. So he could be a big combine guy, where if he can blow this thing up, put up a great 40, give us some good agilities. I think you can see him shoot on this board and then eat a bunch of cheeseburgers and add the weight on for the
oh
pro
yeah,
day. The classic strategy. We might be seeing him.
Brighton Classic.
I mean, he's trying to fall into that Tutu Atwell role, right? And Tutu didn't even run well, so
No,
that killed his stock. But like, if he can, he's going for that Tutu Atwell. I'm gonna, kill it at the combine, put on that little bit of weight to quell those concerns, and then, rock it to the draft. So, speed pays, man. So we'll see if he can show out.
Hell yeah. Yeah, that's kind of all I got on him.
All right,
we wanna go
number
this guy?
2 here, yeah.
Number 2, a person close to my heart, from the University of Wisconsin, my goat, Jack Nelson, offensive tackle. Now, Wisconsin was not very good this last year, as you may know, Mr. Steele.
I've heard, I've witnessed, painfully so. Even you could argue.
Yeah, no, it was not a great year. First losing season in very, very long time. But, at least from what I saw, I don't think Jack Nelson was one of the main contributors to that. Now, do I really think some absolute hidden gem on this team? A little bit. I'll get to that. But do I think he's like a first-round prospect? No. Do I think he's a second-round
You set
prospect?
that up to be like a no, and then this is why we have to keep having you on. You're natural. You're born for media.
Hell yeah. Do I think he's a first-round prospect? No. Do I think he's a second-round prospect? No. But getting a little closer to yes. Really, I think he sits well. third, fourth round. Again, just like the guy we talked about previously. Now, he's got good size, 6'7", 316 pounds. Now, that's what is projected. We don't have official numbers yet. But you look at the tape, he looks big. He plays big. He looks, good. Um, yeah, and there is. Watching the tape, I thought he moved well. Obviously, always can do a little better. I think everyone kind of on Wisconsin, again, like we've said, didn't play really up to what they could. I think you watch the film. I think he's got a strong anchor in pass protection. He doesn't really get blown on his ass all that much, but like some of the prospects that have been talked about by other people, doesn't really have that elite footwork just yet. And that's something, if you want to be a top tier offensive lineman in this league, that's something you really need. And do I think he can develop that? Maybe. I don't know. Could I grow an extra 6 or 7 inches in the next 2 weeks and go try out for the NBA? I'm not saying I couldn't, but anything's possible.
I feel like I'm more high on your sleeper than you are.
I mean, you might. You take. I mean, hey, you
Um,
got to draft someone in
I
the first
think
round.
I feel like, and honestly, I'm impressed. I'm very surprised at how well PFF graded him out in zone, because I didn't feel like he was necessarily a great mover. Um, like I don't feel like he is necessarily like the
No, I
hinge
don't
that I
think
look
he's
for
someone's
out there,
thing.
and I think his footwork
No.
is messy. But that being
Yeah.
said, they've graded him out excellently in everything but the thing I think he'd be the best at, just based off how I feel about him as a player, which is gap
You take
blocking.
that.
But
You
I think he is being slept on to a degree. He's not like he's been facing like
Oh,
light
definitely.
competition here at
Oh
edge.
yeah.
It's just I
No.
think that the team was just kind of a disaster, and
Yeah.
it's kind of hurt his stock. So we'll see kind of how this process goes for him as we kind of get into it and see if he kind of gets that hype. But I think he's a great shout for a sleeper.
Oh
He
yeah.
was in
I think
consideration for mine, but I had to pick my resident bias and pick one Iowa State guy at least.
Oh
So
yes, of course.
I had to
And
at least pick one. Um, I haven't gotten through
and
all
I
my
mean,
Senior Bowl watching, so I did not get a chance to catch up on his reps yet. So that's where I was hoping to kind of get to here um, in the
yeah.
coming weeks. But
And I mean, what I saw from at the Senior Bowl, it was nothing really super flashy, nothing amazing. But I didn't see anything that he looked bad. Right now, is it good? Do you want a guy who is, obviously you want a guy who's always dominating at practices, stonewalling the guys, kicking them on their asses. But if you don't have a guy who's getting his ass beat 24/7, is just kind of mediocre. No one's really talking about him. You know, could be doing worse. Um, and like I said, I think he's fits well. Third, fourth round grade. Do I think he could push himself up into that like second round? Earlier conversation. I do, especially considering I think he's got good length, good size, and with a lot of the top tackle prospects being talked about, like, oh hey, maybe they can go kick into guard because they just suck or they're too small. I think that could maybe help him out. So
yeah, he's definitely. I mean, he's got all the tools to be the tackle, which is it just feels weird to watch a Wisconsin tackle coming out and feel like they just have so much work to do because it just never had been the
yeah,
case beforehand. It's really. I
yeah.
mean, my boomer take here is just every time I watch the Badgers, I just get a little bit angry
No,
because
yeah,
it's just
they're
not.
just regressing. I mean,
We're just not the team we
what
thought.
happened to the game I love?
Well,
The team I love.
listen, and I in Wisconsin basketball scoring 90 points now. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, no,
I'm
this
having a
is-
bad day. All right, I'm not. And
yeah,
when I saw that stat, they'd had three in the last 400 games and three this season. I was like, okay, you can kill me now. I think
yeah. No, it's we're society's falling apart. What are you gonna do?
3 point shot is ruining basketball. This is ridiculous.
Oh hell yeah, dude.
We got to get that
But
pace down. Okay, pace slower. Okay, we're shooting too quick. All right, 10 seconds left on the shot clock.
Chill, just
Should have been three.
RELAX. As a great man would.
Oh
But
man, good stuff. All right, well, thanks for having me. Or thanks for coming on. Jesus, man, it's been a
no,
long day.
no
Thanks for
problem.
having
Thanks
me.
for having
Thanks for
me.
having me on to my own show
Yeah,
here.
no problem. Thank you for making some time out of your schedule and coming on my show. I'm taking over now. So.
All right, well, you got one more interview lined up. All right, go ahead and schedule that out for tomorrow. All right. All right, see you guys in part five.
Yeah, no, you know what? You can take it. You can take it. You
Okay,
can take
all right.
that one.
All right, see you in part five, guys. All right, and here we are with our final part of the sleeper show here, and the doctor is in. Dr. HMFIC. How you doing, buddy?
I'm wonderful, wonderful. Glad to be here, man. Glad to be here.
Every time I see your name, I've heard people say your name as a word, right? Like H-Fike or something. And I
Yeah,
can't, and I can't do it. I can't get my brain to say
Mfit.
it, so I
Mfik.
spell it out literally every time. Himfik?
That's
Yeah,
okay.
I can't do it.
Yeah,
It doesn't.
it's an acronym.
It's an
It stands for
acronym.
something.
I'm
It's the
sure.
truth.
YGB Don over here. Sorry. I can't. When you said that, stand for something, Queen. Okay, I've derailed this very quickly. All right.
All right. On to
Sleepers, huh?
sleepers. Yeah.
All right. Who do you got for your first guy?
All right. So my first sleeper, I'm gonna be honest, and I was kind of just like picking out of a hat when I was searching for names for guys that piqued my eye. I found a defensive back out of Toledo. Goes by the name Maxon Hook, 6 foot, 200 pounds. Um, he's kind of played all over the field. Uh, he's a little undersized when you're looking for the safety position, but he earned third team All MAC honors, posted 95 tackles. Um, he had all MAC selections in 22 and 23. Um, Definitely one of the best defensive backs in the MAC, I believe.
He also got first
But
team
he
this year too, so he's been on 3 years in
correct,
a
but
row
he
first
missed.
team.
He did end his college career on an injury. Uh,
Oof.
he missed the last 5 games. But no, I mean he's as far as strengths, he's a great tackler. Um, he tackles consistently in space. Uh, he maintains square shoulders. He wraps low. Um, Comes in at only a 6.4% missed tackle rate, and that's one of like the best in the nation. Um, got good mental processing. He can read a play incredibly quickly. Um, really good with play action, finding where the ball is. Great in run support. They kind of use him everywhere. Like I said, he's basically a chess piece. He's got 1,500 snaps in the box and 600 snaps as a deep safety. Um, his coaches say that he's a natural leader. He's got a good motor and a real quick trigger downhill.
Yeah, that's pretty much all what I've seen on him too. I haven't gotten into the watching him yet. Just as we're heading into the combine, do you have any idea what about you think he's gonna put up? Is he gonna be kind of a combine riser? He did get that invite, so that's obviously huge for him as far as being drafted. But do you have any numbers on that? I know sometimes those who get reported early.
Um, as far as I haven't seen any as testing as far as anything. I haven't really read that far in, but I'm seeing right now. He's predicted to be a day 3 pick. You know, People believe he can be a consistent backup right away and come in and contribute in sub packages. But as far as his combine scores, I haven't seen anything on that.
Yeah, I see like there's a little bit of question marks about his long speed, but kind of one of those things you can put up a decent number, quell some of that, especially if you can be a special teams contributor early. Being able to tackle, I mean, that's basically the bar for a lot of
Yeah,
these day 3 guys, because it's not like we're seeing a lot of guys with coverage instincts going on these day 3 safety hybrid sort of picks. They're usually guys that are either they can't tackle at all or basically all they can do is tackle. Um, So it's a good floor to have to not be missing tackles.
Yeah, I did. I also read that he's not the greatest when it comes to shedding blocks or going up against receivers that have size on him, such as tight ends or just bigger receivers. Um, he seems to lack every single time he goes up against them.
Which usually you're not expecting your safety to be stacking and shedding too often. So I don't think that's necessarily too big of a concern. It's more if you're trying to put him as like a dime backer sort of look that would become a bigger question mark. Which I'm just not sure if he had the size. 203. I think that's probably solid enough. Dime backer look. But yeah, interesting player at least. The Toledo defense is so fun to watch. So he's been obviously a leader of that defense. So the leadership and the tackling ability should get him some looks here, and obviously got him enough looks to get him invited to Indy.
Yeah,
All right, who do we
I'm
got as
excited.
number two?
A running back, well, actually, wide receiver turned running back by the name of Brashard Smith from SMU. Uh, Brashard, he's kind of, he comes in, he's a little undersized. He's only 5'10", 196 pounds, but he spent his first 3 years in Miami, and as a wide receiver, accumulated 69 receptions for 770 yards, um, 4 touchdowns. He rushed 18 times while in Miami, but only for 177 yards and 1 touchdown. He did have a couple. I think he had a kickoff return for a touchdown against Texas A&M, but ended his career with 1,946 all-purpose yards. He then transferred to SMU, um, and boom, explodes onto the scene. They use him as a running back, um, and he rushed for a buku amount of yards, 1,332 yards on 235 carries, 14 touchdowns. They also used him in the passing game, 39 receptions, 330 yards, 4 touchdowns. And he set a single season program record at SMU with 1,977 all-purpose yards. Again, he's small, um, but he's that dual threat, as a receiver slash running back slash return specialist. He could definitely, I think he could rise at the combine. There's not a ton of tape on him as a running back, and I think, if he tests really well, he could rise.
Yeah, 100%. Like we talked about it in the pre-show, this is sort of the Tyron Tracy sort of mold here. As he transferred to become a running back essentially versus Tracy, I think just kind of phased into it a bit more. But I mean, with Smith, he put up his highest receiving yards total playing running back. Obviously, it was more split time as a wide receiver when he was elsewhere, but he was able to translate those receiver skills into a very productive back. That's 1.68 yards per route run um, out of the backfield. So a very solid number. 21 explosive carries too, 15 plus yards. I mean, he's got the juice, 100%.
Definitely, definitely. I didn't get into too much film, and the one film breakdown I watched of him, it was nothing but just showing his highlight, and just explosive. The one thing that sticks out, explosive.
Yeah, I think the biggest, as sort of the receiving type back, the thing that I'll be looking for as I do get into it before the combine, hopefully, is just how he hands up in pass protection, because that's just going to be such a large part of his role as
It's one of his
a
biggest knocks.
yeah, one of his third down, more of just what is there, right? You're not expecting a wide receiver to be, locked in as a blocking running back, but what does he have to work with to start from, to kind of build off of? Because realistically, you're expecting to coach a lot of these running backs to block up properly. He won't be trusted a lot to do that, but he's got the juice in the running game. Excellent zone grade as well. So we'll just see. That'll we'll be looking for mainly because it's. I mean, on paper here, a lot of this stuff is laid out in front of him, and he's got the juice to be a really good back. But will he be depended on in those situations as well?
Send him to a guy like Andy Reid, and I'm sure he'll figure out something to do with
Oh, they'll figure it out for him for sure.
it.
All right, well, that was our two, the end of our show here. Thank you for joining me, and thanks for all of the people who joined me along the way. I'll get this edited and put up here, hopefully today, maybe. We'll see. But when I get it up.
No,
um,
I appreciate it.
But yeah,
I really do.
thanks for coming on, and I'll catch you guys in the next episode.
Yes, sir.